Welcome. Have you heard the news? Maybe you haven't yet, but soon you will if you're looking at social media, if you're watching the news. There is what seems like an epidemic of dogs developing mysterious respiratory illness. If you've heard about this, drop a comment in the comment, give me a thumbs up if this is not if this is something that you've already heard about and you're here because you're concerned. Now, here's the thing. What we're going to talk about today is what does this illness mean for your dog? And I said dog, it doesn't seem to affect cats. So keep that in mind. And also, to most importantly, what should you do to keep yourself protected? How do we support the body and help you keep out of the fear mindset and give you the tools and help you feel empowered and confident that you can support your pets? So, how does that rhetoric sound versus like, we're screwed, we're done, like my dog's going to die, we can never go outside again? Here's the thing, and this is why I love taking a holistic approach. And when I say holistic, I mean with a W, looking at everything, the ecosystem, the environment, the food, the immune system, our gut health, our microbiome. When we know better, we can do better. And there's so much that we can do. So that's what we're going to talk about today in this week's Coffee Talk. If you are new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. I'm Dr. Katie Woodley, holistic integrative veterinarian and founder of The Natural Pet Doctor. And I'm on a mission to make sure that you, as the amazing pet parent that you are, feel confident and empowered that you can support and help your pets age gracefully. So if you're excited to get started, because I know this is a scary topic, and I understand that there's a lot of fear around this, especially what we've gone through with the recent pandemic and all the fears that the media starts instigating and feeding into, I promise you there is hope and there's a way forward to help support your pets. Now, we need to talk about some of the facts that are around this and the things that we know and the things that we don't know. And I want to keep in mind too, when you do see these news stories, it's important to educate yourself. But keep in mind, the media is not going to talk about all the pets that are getting it and are doing fine. So when you see a positive case that's reported, so you'll hear like there were 200 pets in Oregon over the summer that were diagnosed with this mysterious respiratory illness. It doesn't mean all those pets had to go on respirators and oxygen cages and things like that. That is always really important to keep in mind whenever we go through something like this and you start hearing those numbers and they start kind of feeding into that fear. That is what the media does. So that's what makes a good news story and gets attention and eyes on that. Now, that doesn't help us if we're going down the path of fear. And so here's the thing. This can impact and affect your dog. It can make them really, really sick. And so that's why it's important to do all we can right now to boost and support their immune systems. And there's some easy ways that we can do that. And I know a lot of our pet parents that follow me that are in our community are already doing a lot of these things. And that's really important. So keep that in mind, because a lot of these pets that are getting sick, they're probably not on the same path that you're on with your own pet and using fresh food diets and supporting their immune system and using things like medicinal mushrooms and being aware of the connection with stress and the gut health and that gut brain axis. Now, if you're like, I don't think I'm doing any of that, that's all new. Don't worry, I have some resources for you. We just released a new blog post. That's all free information at thenaturalpetdoctor.com, where you can go through and you'll get more tips and dosages and brands that we recommend too, that you can use for your dogs and even your cats too. Keep in mind, it doesn't seem to affect cats. So that's really, really good. Okay. So don't, your kitties, this is not transmitted back and forth between dogs and cats. It doesn't seem to impact humans. We don't know what it is. We don't know if it's a virus. We don't know if it's a bacteria. We don't know the cause of this respiratory illness. There's a lot of studies that are happening right now. And in terms of Cornell Animal Health Diagnostic Center, a lot of infectious disease centers across the US are looking and studying and testing to figure out what is this. And there's concerns. Some people are saying it's mycoplasma, which doesn't respond to the typical antibiotics, which we're seeing. So, these are things we don't know, but what I do know is that when you support health, you have a much better chance of fighting it if your dog comes into contact with it. So keep that in mind. We don't know the exact cause. It appears to only be in the US, but it is a respiratory illness. So what that means is it's spread through respiratory droplets. It is highly infectious and contagious. And so it's not spread through urine. You don't have to worry about your pets like sniffing other like spots of urine. It is really important to still go outside, ground yourself, get out in the open air. Really, really important. That is really important for optimal health. Now, the thing around that, though, is because it is a contagious disease, we don't know viral, bacterial, but it is contagious. This is not the time to go to the dog park. If you can avoid boarding, great. We are in the holiday season. So you might be like, I can't avoid that. So once again, this is more important that we start doing the things that we need to do to support the immune system now. And we continue that support if your dog does have to go into a situation like boarding, where they're going to be at a higher risk of coming into contact with the infectious disease. Now, the other thing too to keep in mind is that daycare facilities, I would not recommend going to daycare, but I would still exercise your dog. That's really, really important. We don't want them to get stressed. That can lower the immune system. So we still want to get outside and exercise them and play with them and engage with them. That emotional health is really, really important. That gut-brain axis is a very key element to making sure that our pets stay healthy. Now, the other thing too is that if you have other dogs in the house, like, yes, they are at it. Like if one dog gets sick and starts coughing, yes, there's a risk that the other dog is going to, potentially come down with it too. I would say if you have other friends and their dogs, if they're not showing symptoms, I'm okay with you still having play dates. Just don't do it at the dog park where you don't know the health status of those pets. That's really, really important. I was going to say, and Mama Bear, I'm glad you brought this up. The big thing here is that because of respiratory droplets is how it's probably spread. So like coughing, sneezing, think about us with like the cold, the flu, COVID, right? Same kind of mechanism. So if you have public dog water bowls, do not use them. Once again, we want to be thinking about, do I know the health status of the animals that my dog might be coming into contact with? If we can't answer that question, then we're better to avoid that situation. Now, once again, it doesn't mean that your dog can't go with you to like walking in the park. If there's a lot of dogs there, then maybe pick like a neighborhood or another path that's less likely for your dog to like have nose to nose contact with other dogs. Now, we don't know how long it lasts in the environment and all of those things. So it's hard to say, like, does this last in the ground? Like parvo is really, really hardy virus that lasts 7 years in the ground. We don't know that information. So this is where we do the best that we can. Now, recently on a podcast, actually this week, I was asked about like germ theory and terrain theory. And germ theory is, Louis Pasteur, where they stated that the bug causes the disease. But in reality, we need to operate from more of a terrain theory, where everything that we're doing is either helping or potentially harming the immune system, the gut health, our emotional health, our physical health. And when we create strength by doing things to optimize them, even for immunocompromised pets. So I saw someone like stated their dog doesn't have a spleen. This is even more essential that we're doing these tools and thinking about these foundations of health to help our pets. So keep that in mind. That is the underlying theme for all health, regardless of whether or not we're trying our best to prevent this disease or we're proactively treating an active disease. We have to go back to those pillars of health and those foundations of health. Really, really important. Now, what symptoms should we be looking for? Because I know a lot of my holistic pet parents are like, I don't want to go to the vet. I don't want to get more vaccines. I don't want to get antibiotics. And we need to talk about what are the symptoms. Because unfortunately, if we start seeing symptoms, it can progress very quickly to pneumonia and dogs can get really sick. So those are the stories that you're hearing. It's probably not the majority of cases, but we need to be aware. Like if we see our dog start coughing, if we see our dog start sneezing, and your dog may have allergies, and this could be something where it happens seasonally. So knowing your pet's normals are very, very important. This is where I highly recommend keeping a journal. So this is something to keep in mind. You can keep track of how's my pet feeling? Did they eat? How's their energy levels? Are we seeing any of these respiratory systems? So looking at your pets, are you seeing any labored breathing where, they're sleeping and their respiratory rate, their chest is rising rapidly? We're seeing, a respiratory rate over 30 breaths per minute when they're sleeping. We need to start watching them more closely. And if you're concerned, I'm not against going to the vet. That's really, really important if you're seeing any of these symptoms. So you can get tested, you can get treatment right away. Now, nose eye discharge can happen also, especially if you're seeing like snotty discharge from the nose, if it's colored. Lethargy, so they're more tired. It impacts their energy levels, decreased appetite. And those are symptoms that we need to be aware of because pets can get really, really sick. And this is something really, really important. I am not against medications, conventional drugs. Unfortunately, they don't work very well in this situation. The other thing that you might come across is vaccinations. And so there's a common thread saying, make sure your pet's up to date on vaccines. Your flu, influenza vaccine, and your kennel cough vaccines do not cover this because it's not the strain that vaccine is vaccinating potentially for. Those don't really work anyways very well, unfortunately. So I don't usually recommend them, but a lot of times boarding facilities, kennels, doggy daycares, those types of things require those vaccines. If your dog is not like being required to have those, do not do them. They are not a core vaccine. And this is not the time to like overstimulate the immune system and make it work harder. So that's a little bit different than a lot of my other veterinary colleagues. But now is the time to support the immune system to figure out, are things off? Where are those things off? And what can we do to support them? So, mitigating the risk, avoiding these high risk situations. If you are one of those pet parents where you're like, hey, Dr. Katie, it's the holiday season. I've planned this trip for a long time, or you may not be able to I'm not saying to cancel trips, but if you can, look into services like Trusted House Sitters, trustedhousesitters.com. We've used them for years. I absolutely love them. We just went away for 3 weeks and someone lived in our home. She was actually a veterinarian at Colorado State. It was fantastic. I felt like my cats were well taken care of. Someone lived in my home. I didn't have to stress them out by putting them into a boarding facility. What's nice too, it's like a membership fee. And I'm not here to I don't have a link or I don't make any money from this promotion. I have just really enjoyed being able to screen and vet people who stay in my house. They apply, and it could be a great way to reduce your stress and the risk of your dog coming into contact with a respiratory illness if you do have to go away. So it's, I think it's like $97 a year. I might be wrong, but they stay in your house for free. Like, it's one of the ways that people can travel and stay in different places. And it's just a really nice service. I 100% recommend checking that out. Trusted House Sitters. It's also on our blog that's up right now on our website, thenaturalpetdoctor.com, that has more of these resources and everything detailed out. Everything is being recorded. So if you go to our YouTube channel, if you're not on it right now watching, you can go to the Natural Pet Doctor, Dr. Katie Woodley. Make sure you hit subscribe so you get notified for whenever we release new content, but you can rewatch the replay there. This will also be posted as long as Instagram plays its part. Now, let's talk more about, we've talking about the symptoms, the precautions. If your pet gets sick, I still recommend going in and getting an exam, having your vet listen to the lungs. If we get to a place of pneumonia, that is very serious. This is where I am not 100% against conventional drugs. There is a time and a place. Unfortunately, the drugs don't work very well. This is once again why it's so important that we're doing the natural remedies to support them. We're feeding species appropriate diets. This is really, really important. Now, keep in mind too, this is not an epidemic. There's like pockets of outbreaks. Now, everyone just traveled. I think there was like a record of TSA, the number of people who traveled this holiday season over Thanksgiving. And that's movement, that's potential spread. So this is probably where there's going to potentially be more outbreaks occurring across the nation. So once again, though, like, this is where I do not subscribe to fear-based tactics, but what I subscribe to is knowing so we can do better about how the body works and the tools that we have. Really, really important. I've tapped into this for years, especially through the pandemic, and it's held me through. I travel a lot. I don't get sick very often. And I'm not going to let it hold me back because I can support my immune system and your pet's immune systems, your immune system. It's amazing the innate ability for it to heal when you provide it the proper healing tools. 100%. This is where, too, if your pets are immunocompromised, more importantly, there's things that we can do and support them. And sometimes you have to tweak and adjust it too if you have really, really sensitive pets. Like all the supplements I'm listing are not the time and place now to add them. This is where if you have a really sensitive pet, starting with one thing and usually using half the dosage that's recommended and doing 3 to 5 days of that, make sure there's no diarrhea, there's no GI upset. All of those things is really, really important. But we need to support those immunocompromised pets also to make sure that they're doing okay. So that's great questions. I appreciate those. Let's talk about what you can do. Does that sound good? Thumbs up from everyone. Let's talk about what we can do to strengthen your pet's immune system. And I go back to my 5 pillars. We have lots of videos on those. We have lots of blog posts on what those are. This is all about physical health, immune health, gut health and nutrition, your environmental health, and your emotional health. We need to be looking at all those factors because they're all interconnected and they're all going to play a part on whether or not we're the most optimized that we can be. And they apply for both you and your pets. We are part of their ecosystem too. This is also why I don't subscribe to fear. I'm surrounded by my kitties. There's one over there. There's another one over there. They are going to feel that. They are going to feel my energy. And if I am coming from fear for one thing, my immune system lowers. They feel my fear. They feel my stress. They're going to feel that frequency. Yes, that sounds woo-woo, but everything's running at different energetic frequencies. This is where feeling, excited or empowered or confident, feeling that love, that is a higher energetic healing frequency versus fear, hate, all of those things. So we want to do our best to tap into the power of our heart and love, right? Sounds crazy, but it does work. And there's a lot of studies that show that. The Heart Math Institute is a great resource to check into for the scientific research on that. But what is the foundation of health? This is where nutrition is key. Now, if you're feeding a processed food diet, I highly recommend downloading our simple guide to improving your pet's food. It is on our website. It's also in the link in the bio. It is a free guide and it can help you transition or also give you some tools and some healthy foods that you can add onto the top of the diet. So you don't necessarily have to change. I know a lot of people are going through financial struggles right now with the economy and the way the world is. And feeding like raw diets can sometimes be really expensive for people. But what's more expensive is an ER visit and hospitalization and being in an oxygen cage. So or on a respirator. So if we can start adding in fresh foods and foods that are high in phytonutrients and antioxidants and are also supporting the lung from a traditional Chinese food therapy perspective, we need to support the lung. And there's different types of foods that are going to help support those areas. So medicinal mushrooms are really, really helpful. So we can chop those up, have some for ourselves. We can lightly saute them in a little bit of grass-fed butter if you can, and then use that as a topper on the food. This can just even be button mushrooms. You don't have to go crazy. There's still medicinal properties in button mushrooms that tend to be a little bit cheaper. Looking at also broccoli is really, really helpful at supporting detox pathways and providing additional phytonutrients. So we want to steam it to make it easier for our dogs to break down. Our blueberries, adding those on top, those are really, really helpful. Now, in terms of, I just got a question about the plant food, right? Aren't dogs carnivores? They tend to be, they're not an obligate carnivore like our cats who have zero requirements for any plant material. This is where we don't want high carb diets. So especially processed high carb diets like kibble that have really poor quality ingredients that are usually not fit for human consumption. It's called feed grade. There's different definitions. Like we actually can't eat their food because it's dangerous for us. A lot of pet parents and a lot of my veterinary colleagues don't know that. I didn't know that because I didn't talk about it in vet school. I realized it later and then threw up when I heard about friendering and all the things. This is where, once again, education helps empower you. So with plants, What we want to do is we want the additional phytonutrients, antioxidants, but also most importantly, we need to feed the microbiome. The microbiome is the trillions of different types of microorganisms that are living inside our pets' bodies and our bodies in the gut, and they need what are called prebiotics. This is the undigestible fiber from those plants and from medicinal mushrooms too. It's a great source of prebiotics that's going to feed the healthy bacteria. They are talking to your dog's immune system. Probably about 90% of your dog's immune system is closely connected to gut health. And if we have an issue with that microbiome, if we have lots of inflammation, your pet's immune system will be compromised. A lot of people don't realize that. So plant food, 100% yes. Fermented greens are great. There's a lot of companies that make it super easy for you. You can also chop up some kale and spinach and lightly steam them. Green Juju is a great company. Also, Gussie Guts is another great company for your fermented greens. So we're also then getting the beneficial properties of natural probiotics. So there is a place for the food. The food is the foundation. And if we're feeding foods that aren't supporting and optimizing health and supporting that microbiome, everything else will be struggling. So this is really, really important. Now, in terms of, so also too, you can test their microbiome. So this is where there are additional tests. You have a healthy pet or you think you have a healthy pet. Let's not assume, let's test and make sure. So that way we can proactively get them back to optimal health. Just because they don't have symptoms does not mean they are in a healthy state. That's a hard concept to understand for a lot of people because we're all on a spectrum. So this is where animal biome, you can order a stool test or you can do a stool test through them. You don't have to go through the vet and you can see what is my pet's microbiome look like. Really, really important. The other thing too is if you have a picky pet, because I see you guys, this is where blending it up and mixing it in with things like broths, or if they like raw goat milk or kefir or something like sardines, making something that they really like, mixing it all together, you can mask that taste and that flavor that sometimes like picky dogs don't want to do. So definitely take a look at those. Those are really, really helpful. And then download our free guide if you need help and more options. The other thing too is minimizing exposure to toxins. So being aware of our environment, a lot of dogs, they are not detoxing properly or they're in high risk areas, right? So especially if you live in like big cities like New York City, or you go to dog parks, or you live in Fort Collins, Colorado, like I do, and everyone sprays their yards with herbicides and pesticides, which drives me up the wall because my German Shepherd died from a brain tumor. And there is a connection, can't say correlation equals causation, but there's a lot of studies out there that show that this is not helpful. And so once you become aware of that, it doesn't mean we need to live in a bubble, right? But you can better support the detox pathways, opening them up, using binders, making sure we're supporting the gut, making sure we're supporting the liver, making sure we're supporting the lungs, which is also a detox pathway, and making sure we're supporting the skin. We need those toxins to get out so they don't get recirculated, and then it builds up. It creates inflammation in your pet's body. It makes things harder to work. The enzymes don't work well. The digestion doesn't work well. The microbes don't like inflammation. We start producing more inflammation. And then your pet's at a higher risk of getting sick from respiratory illness. So this is really, really important to keep in mind. The other thing too is, what about immune support? Obviously, everything is interconnected. I really hope you're understanding like the foundations are key for improving and optimizing your pet's health. Without that, it's essentially like a house, right? Think about your house or the room you're sitting in. Look at the wall. If you see a crack in the wall and you take some plaster and you start plastering that wall and you're like, great, I fixed it, right? The crack went away. And then 2 weeks later, the crack appears again. Maybe it's in a different area or it's bigger. And you're like, wait, I plastered that. Why is it coming back? Plaster it again. And you continue that. And then all of a sudden, like the wall like cracks and slides down. And it's because the foundation was off and we were looking at the wrong thing. So keep that in mind. Really, really, really important. And so supplements, there is a time and a place. I do not want you to over supplement. I want you, if you're looking at, okay, my diet may not be optimized, I would rather you spend money on optimizing the diet and getting them onto a species appropriate diet versus adding in 10 different supplements. So that's really important. On our blog post, I also I talk more about what to use to help prevent, what to use to help if you are currently seeing symptoms with your dog. So if they're getting the runny nose, if they're getting the runny eyes, if they're sneezing, they're coughing, if they have pneumonia, there are things we can do to help those organs and those tissues actually heal and reduce further inflammation from happening. Now, I like standard process. I like whole food glandular products. I use them myself. I use them for a lot of my clients and patients, and I see really, really good results with them. There are a couple products that I highly recommend. I'm sorry if you're not in the States, but if you're not in the States, you're probably not dealing with this right now, and hopefully it stays that way. However, we want to give that foundation good solid ground. So this is where the whole body support and the immune support are really, really important. And this is where there's additional things like the whole food sources of vitamin E, whole food sources of zinc. There's medicinal mushrooms in there to help support the body also. The other thing too that I recommend, especially if there is a chronic disease or chronic cough, or you have a pet that already has like chronic bronchitis, making sure we're using what's called the VF Thymex for pets. Now, this information is all at our blog post. So I am going to drop that link for everyone here. Also, too, you can go to the Natural Pet Doctor, but I talk about these and give you the links and also the dosages that you can use for your pets. So keep that in mind. Your Thymex for pets, what this is an extract of the bovine thymus gland. That thymus gland is really important for our immune system. And unfortunately, as we age, as our pets age, it shrinks. So we're more susceptible to disease, to aging, to inflammation. And Michelle, don't worry. Thymex for humans is the exact same product as VF Thymex for pets. So you just follow the dosing instructions that are on full script. So don't worry about that. If you accidentally bought the human products, you can use their human products too for pets. Now, those are going to combine together. Let's like improve and optimize the nutrition through whole food and glandulars. And then we want to use mushrooms. So you can use these as a topper. So you're chopping them up, you're lightly sauteing them in a bit of grass-fed butter. We can also, I recommend kind of increasing that dose. Remember, with a lot of supplements and herbs, we have a wide range of dosages. So I don't want you to worry about overdosing. Once again, keep a journal, monitor for like loose stool, diarrhea, vomiting. If you're seeing that, decrease the dose and only add one thing in at a time so you know how your pet's responding. This is where I love Real Mushrooms. Now there's multiple good brands out there. I use Real Mushrooms for myself. I really like their studies. I like the education around it. I would recommend 5 Defenders, which is a blend of different mushrooms. Now, here's where I would also add in things like turkey tail on top of that. So your 5 Defenders is a nice general blend. I use this every day for myself just to keep my immune system happy and healthy. And then if I'm going to be at a higher risk, we can increase the single mushroom dosages so that we're getting kind of like double the dosage and using it for certain like reasons. So like allergies, increasing the dosage of reishi is something that has been shown to help. If we have GI issues, this is where using things like chaga and tremella mushrooms are really helpful. So keeping in mind, we can double up on those and we can increase the dosages too. So check out Real Mushrooms. I love them. I use them daily for myself, and I use them for my own cats, and I use them for my clients all the time. The other thing too, immune support, colostrum. So I love the Ferapet Immune Topper. It's a combination of goat milk, so a lot of pets really love it. And then also to colostrum, and then it also has some beneficial probiotics in it. Probiotics, there's a lot of mixed opinions about probiotics. Unfortunately, there is a ton of studies. And when I see that and I see the results and I see the impacts, that I still do recommend probiotics, but I don't recommend them all the time. And I recommend rotating and I recommend testing the microbiome. But that Ferapet Immune Topper is really, really helpful. So this is definitely something to look at. Lauren, great question. Any mushrooms we can have, the dogs can have. If they're toxic to us, then, or dogs can't have them either. That's fantastic. Thank you for stating that. We want to be careful with not giving them things out in the wild. That's where dogs eat certain mushrooms outside and they get severe diarrhea and get really sick. So the mushrooms, the brands that I recommend, you can definitely use for your pets. Now, here's the thing. This is where, okay, we can prevent, we can help. Now, if your pet's sick, what can we do? And this is where we need to up our game, right? Continue your maintenance protocol with those supplements. Now, there's other things you can do in terms of vitamin C, there's phytospore, which is another spore-based probiotic that is just a really good one that helps support detox pathways. So bacillus strains are really, really helpful. But if you're concerned, your pet is sick, there are things we can do. Once again, take them in, have them examined. If they do need medications, I'm not against drugs, but we need to make sure that we are supporting them to optimize and reduce the risk of the harm to the GI tract, to that microbiome. This is where Saccharomyces boulardii is really, really beneficial. I talked a lot about it in previous like diarrhea videos and blog posts and how to manage your bloody diarrhea. So make sure you check those out too. They're at thenaturalpetdoctor.com. They're also on our YouTube channel, Dr. Katie Woodley, the Natural Pet Doctor. So also reference those. Really, really important. So we can do things if you need to use drugs to save your pet. Like there is a time and a place. Please don't just stay at home and try to manage it on your own if like quality of life is fading and they are not doing well. We need to take care of them. And this is that integrative, holistic approach. Holistic does not, by definition, mean we don't use drugs. I'm saying there's a lot of other things we need to do though, and proactively do so that way we can prevent the chance that that happens. Now, there's a couple other standard process supplements, Conjuplex, that I really like when we have an active infection. This can be used also for you, just FYI, it's a human supplement. There is a dosage on our blog post. I already shared that link on our YouTube channel. So you can go to that or thenaturalpetdoctor.com and go to our blogs. This is going to help include vitamins that support mucous membranes, provide vitamin C in whole food form, not synthetic form. It also has Thymex in it. So remember, that's that bovine thymus gland that's going to help improve the way the immune system responds. And it also helps with rebuilding and repairing. So we need to give the body the building materials so that it can fight infection and heal. The other thing that I tend to use, which is PMG products, this is specific to standard process. And this is where if we have pneumonia, they're coughing, there's a lot of inflammation. We're seeing, we've diagnosed pneumonia on a chest x-ray and our pets are not, they're taking a long time to improve. We can actually use these protomorphogens. So pneumotrophin, so think of lung, PMG, protomorphogen. What it does is it draws the immune system away from attacking the lung tissue. So it allows it to actually start healing rather than creating more inflammation. So it essentially acts as like a decoy. And it's really neat. It's like the DNA of those cells. So even if your pet's like sensitive to bovine products, you might be like, my dog can't eat beef. It's actually, they can't react to it, which is really, really neat. So you can use this for pets who are like food sensitive to like beef products. And it's just used as a component of support for any respiratory problem. So definitely check those out. The other thing too is where we need to think about supportive care also. Think about yourself when you're hacking and you're coughing. Like it hurts. It's irritating. It irritates the mucous membranes. So Manuka honey, God bless. I love New Zealand, not only because my husband's from there. I went to vet school there, but their Manuka honey is amazing. And it is so therapeutic. It helps fight naturally infections and even infections that can be antibiotic resistance. You want to make sure you're using UMF 10 plus. So there's some brands that I listed on our Full Script page and resources there. Definitely check them out. Even if you can't order from Full Script or you choose not to, definitely check out some of the brands that I recommend there. The link is on our website. So go to the blog and there's also the Full Script link for you to check out dosages and other brands and some of the Manuka brands that I recommend. So definitely include that, a little teaspoon in some like ginger tea or even chamomile tea or peppermint tea. I love teas. I talked about herbal tea in a previous Coffee Talk with the Doc, the recordings on our YouTube channel. We can use teas in the food or add it to broths. So that way we're getting the soothing, healing properties of those plants also. Alongside the Manuka honey, you can add in a little bit of slippery elm, create that mucilage that's going to help coat and soothe. These are the things I use for myself. and they're super safe to use for your dog too, to help alleviate some of those symptoms, reduce inflammation, and allow all the supplements and the food therapy that you're using to truly heal their body. So those are a couple things that I look at. Colloidal silver is another one that I recommend using too. Adored Beast has a great safe colloidal silver brand that you can use and follow their dosing recommendations. And don't be afraid to try these things, especially if you're like in a high risk situation or you're worried. Remember, fear lowers our immunity naturally. There are tactics and tools that we can use when we tap into the power of healing the immune system and supporting the immune system naturally. So there's a lot of information here. I know I tried to compact as much into this coffee talk as possible. Don't worry, it's recorded. You can go back and re-listen to this, but make sure you go to our website, jump on our newsletter. You can always unsubscribe at any time if you feel like that. That's no problem. But get the information, implement, share it with other pet parents, because when we come together to show people there's a way forward other than like suppressing the immune system with more vaccines that don't work for this type of illness, or using drugs that aren't even working against this, we can use the natural power of herbs, Chinese herbal medicine, Chinese food therapy. Those are my tools, my main go-to tools in my toolbox. There's other natural remedies too. And make sure you're taking care of yourself too. A lot of these things that I mentioned today can also be used for yourself. And this is the season of flus, colds, and COVID's making another round, supposedly. Don't buy into it. Take care of yourself. You can do things to help support your immune system naturally. And the stronger we are, we have more from our cup to pour from. You can't pour from an empty cup. We are our pets' caregivers. Without us, they need us. And I need you in this movement, that we are all on together to make sure that we start helping and educating and sharing that there are ways to support our pets that don't necessarily have to include drugs and other things that can impair our pets' quality of life and their length of their life. So I hope you found that out super helpful today. I know that was a rapid fire round of our coffee talk with the doc. I appreciate everyone for showing up live, taking a bit of time, or if you're watching this replay, do me a favor, tag someone, share it with someone today, help them not be afraid, help them have the tools to support their pets. If that is the one thing that you do from our content, God bless you. Like, I appreciate that so much. So that way others don't have to be in fear that they have nothing that they can do, because that is not the truth. So thank you. We'll be back next Friday with our next coffee talk with the doc. I'm Dr. Katie Woodley, the natural pet doctor. Take care and let me know what you use and how your dog responds with it. So drop a comment down below. Take care.